The information and views expressed by our host or guests on the Unlock Potential podcast are their own, and not a substitute for professional medical or fitness advice. Always consult with qualified healthcare or fitness professionals before starting any new exercise program or making changes to your current routine.
What do you find to be the most, some of these disempowering beliefs or stories that people walk in through, and what do you wish that they knew that would really not even solve those stories, but just completely dissolve them?
I wish they knew that any discomfort that they feel is an opportunity, not a problem. That any discomfort that they feel is a guide towards the direction they should go and not something to be ignored.
Hello and welcome to Season 2 of Unlock Potential. I'm Brian Delaney. Our focus this season is fitness. I'll be joined by Dr. Corey Duvall, who's going to guide us through his protocol for getting into your best shape so we can live our best lives and serve others well. Hello and welcome to Unlock Potential. My name is Brian Delaney. I'm here with my co-host, Dr. Corey Duvall. Welcome to episode 26. Today, we're going to be discussing one of the sayings that I have on the shirt. I would take it off, but we might get banned from YouTube if I do that now that you have me in shape here, right? Don't want to do that. But it's strong enough to go deep, deep enough to go strong. And so very fired up. Thank you for joining us today on this episode. Like, subscribe, make sure to follow everything that we're doing, of course, through the Stay Active method, just constant videos, instructionals, inspiration, just showing how normal people can do difficult things and those difficult things become easier. So fired up by the content you're putting out there. So don't miss out on that. Like, subscribe to Stay Active method. Stay Active app is in construction right now. They're building it behind the scenes. We're doing all the branding. I haven't had this much homework ever, or no, I haven't done this much homework ever. That's right.
A good point.
Yeah, that's fair. So we're very fired up for what that's going to do for you, whether you're someone who's looking to be coached, you're a coach, you're a healthcare provider, you're someone who has just gone through the yo-yo cycles of weight loss, muscle building. Maybe you've gone through some mental health yo-yo cycles or some life cycles that have put you up and down. It's this work that we do that can really support that whole person health, right? That more holistic view of health that I know that you've built the Stay Active method for. So. Yeah. Very fired up for everything that's in development, but let's talk about it. I think one of the beautiful things about strong enough to go deep and deep enough to go strong is it's a belief. It's a belief, and it can be combined with the stories, and those beliefs are either disempowering or empowering. I don't know. I heard a long time ago that people live by story. They live by stories. We're people of the story, right? We're guided by those stories. Those beliefs come from those stories. Talk to me about, just your empowering, disempowering journey with stories and how that's worked for you.
So I like to hold the thought that things happen for me and not to me. And it's easy to think that. It's easy to believe that when good things are happening to me. Oh, I've done everything right and all these good things are happening. And then when difficult things start to happen, to be able to find and use the strength to redirect that story to this is a difficult thing happening to me, to this is a difficult task for me to learn and grow with. This is a difficult thing happening for me to develop some part of me, to develop a skill, to develop myself to help others in the future. And the deeper into that difficulty that I can redirect that story, the easier it is when I get on the other side.
Yeah.
And when I've gotten on the other side of some difficult things, I inevitably find that others around me are encountering some of those things, and I get to be there beside them and help them redirect the story as well.
I guess redirect for you. I know what the experience is for me, but redirect the story from what to what. And one of them that you just mentioned is this is happening to me to this is happening for me. This isn't just about exercise. You own the gym. You run a business. You just had to sell a piece of real estate. You've got all the relationships with people. You have your personal relationships. So there's a lot more to this than just exercise, but exercise is one of the places that this manifests, right? So just in that greater journey, how have you flipped those stories? What are some examples of that for you outside of the for me and to me?
Yeah, quite literally, I was 15 years old and I had just made the varsity basketball team as a high school freshman. And I was holding on to some pride about that, and I was excited, and I was in my first game. And a few minutes into the first game, as I tipped a pass, I was on defense, I tipped a pass to a teammate, so we made the steal. I took off down the court, and as I took off down the court, my teammate is passing me the ball. I'm like about to score my first varsity basket, and that ball went over my head the other way. And as I realized that I was headed this way to the basket and the ball went that way, I had to pivot. And as I pivoted, my knee popped. Woo. And I literally hit the ground and I banged my fist on the floor. I said the F-bomb a couple of times and I said, why is this happening to me?
Wow.
I remember that vividly, saying those exact words, why is this happening to me? And it's many, many years later, 30 years later now almost, that I am helping people through some serious life difficulties because that changed the course of my career. That set me in motion that I was going to help people. As I was helping people recover from knee injuries, I started to notice that there were other things people needed to recover from. And so this wasn't happening to me. This was happening for me, but it was a really difficult time in the moment.
Yeah. Like I know for me, it's like inevitable. We get in that injury. I'm gonna slam my fist. I'm gonna drop the F-bomb. I'm gonna do that stuff. We're not prescribing a different modality than doing all that. It's just for me, it's not about skipping the sequence. It's about being able to move through the sequence in a more quick and easy way, right? But it's about moving through that sequence in a way that's going to produce those results. That's going to finalize, because whatever I believe, if I believe that it's happening to me, the results are going to be less of me at the end. If I believe it's happening for me, the results are going to be more of me at the end. There's going to be more there. I'm going to be able to handle more. I'm going to have more skills, better perspective. So whatever I believe comes true, right? But were you in that moment able to do it? How long did it take you to do it? And how have you seen that timeline shrink over time as you've gotten more adept to making that transition from to me to for me?
Oh, yeah, there's just so many layers to that, because as that occurred, I still suffered a few more injuries over the next couple of years. And it wasn't until probably 20 years after that that I really started sinking into the memory that this was, at the time, I thought it was happening to me, but I had turned it into something positive. Now, other things have occurred in my life that I felt like was happening to me, and I did redirect those things. Does it happen quicker? Yeah. The skill of taking a bad situation and redirecting it is a skill that we get to develop. And as we develop it, we get quicker at it. We end up getting an ease to redirecting that, and harder things get redirected quicker and easier. Yeah.
And I think this goes back to, for me, it goes back to this idea of like what really is helpful about positive psychology. And we've seen it be unhelpful to be freaking delusional.
Yes.
Not to go through the grief process and mine that for all the gold that it has, right? But not to stop there, to turn that event into a catalytic event where there is more life, more wisdom, more experience, more strength, more, right? More opportunity to serve others, just as in your story.
Exactly.
Right? So we don't want, what I would never tell anybody, and I hold this for myself, is you better get good at grieving. Like, in this life, you're going to deal with grief.
Yeah.
You're going to deal with the loss of something you had, the loss of something you never had.
Yeah.
You're going to, you're going to deal with, divorce potentially. You're going to potentially end of relationship, right? And whether those are positive or negative, we still go through that grieving process.
Yes.
Sometimes those endings are necessary, and it's very clear that they're necessary, and we initiate them. Sometimes they catch us out of the blue.
Yeah.
Right. And that for me, I'm thankful that I had some people in my corner who didn't say, you'll get over it, but they said, yeah, that's hard. Yeah, that's hard. You'll look back on this one day and see how much you've learned and grown from it. You'll be able to look back. Just hold yourself right now in a way that you'll be proud of later on.
Yes.
Right? Which doesn't mean me lying to everybody else and just saying, well, it's God's will. It's God's will that all this stuff happens to me, because I've watched people do that. And then when something exceptionally difficult comes in, that facade, that mask can't hold up under that kind of pressure.
Right. So there's actually an aspect of physiology that I'm thinking of right now. And in pain management, if somebody has spasms in their back from an injury, so they've damaged some of the vertebrae or some of the discs between the vertebrae in the spine, the muscles contract in order to protect from more damage. And that's what's called a muscle spasm. And there is a prescription that some physicians can offer called a muscle relaxer. And when somebody is offered a muscle relaxer, they think, because of the name of that, the spasm is being released.
Interesting. Yeah, that's what we would all think, because that's what's in the name, right?
I feel tight. I feel guarded. I feel protective.
Yeah.
This is a problem. I want it to go away. Oh, here's some muscle relaxers. It's going away. The mechanism of action has nothing to do with releasing the spasm. The mechanism of action is in the brain, and it reduces the care that you have towards the spasm. It's a psychoactive drug. It works on your mind so that you're still in spasm. You just don't care that you're in spasm. And so when I first heard that, I got really angry that somebody is out there prescribing muscle relaxers and confusing people and lying to people. You're saying that you're releasing the spasm, and it's not releasing the spasm. You're saying it's relaxing the body, and it's not relaxing the body. And I got so angry that I was pushing back against that. But I found that with clients, when I expressed that anger, they didn't feel ease from that. My reaction about being angry about that highlighted the fact that they are more confused than ever.
Yeah, and their ability to make decisions is compromised.
Exactly. What I found was more beneficial was explaining why tension is there and what we can do with it. When tension is there and we can work with it, they feel empowered. If they think that their back is tight and the tight is a problem and they're always looking to release it and then exposing themselves to more injury, the second injury happens quickly. The third injury happens sooner than the second injury. The fourth injury is more problematic than the second and the third and the first. And so we see this cascade of people trying to avoid the tension, trying to avoid the uncomfortable feelings, taking pills that make them temporarily not care about it, and then experiencing even more of it. And that's how they get addicted to painkillers. They get addicted to muscle relaxers. They get addicted to not being aware of their body more. But I just wanted to encourage them. And so I found that, hey, I hear that your back is tight. This is what we're going to do with it. Now they're empowered to work with the tension, because they still felt that it was tight, but the psychoactive nature, the fact that they didn't care about it as much, was a window for me to get them to work with it. And as soon as they started to work with it, later on, if it ever cropped up again, they weren't so quick to go ignore it. They felt empowered to work with it. And when they felt empowered to work with it, they were actually able to reduce the frequency and intensity that they had to protect.
want to point out a couple of empowering like snippets of that story because I think it's so freaking big. Because my first reaction is like, fuck them. They're like, screw the medical situation. Like we have all that. Like I get why you responded that way, and that response isn't out of line. That communication to the client, which I love that you got. I love that you captured that, and you saw that it was making them more nervous, feel less capable, less intuitive, right?
I wasn't helping the situation when I got angry that way.
Exactly. That was your own feeling, not one to be shared.
Exactly.
Right? And that was your own decision to feel that way, right?
Yep.
And so I think it's really important to understand that what we don't say is we don't say, hey, your physician is a bad person. What we do say is, hey, understand the polluted system that they're in and that they could be captured, right? That they could be captured.
I would say even go farther than that. The physician often is offering that because they find that the temporary relief the patient gets achieves the goal.
Yeah.
So the goal was, hey, I don't want to feel this anymore. This is uncomfortable. The physician offers it because they're like, hey, you're going to feel comfortable. Goal achieved. So they came into it from a good place. The client just didn't know what goal they had. I have to step in and adjust the long-term goal for people.
Yeah.
So what can we do when we feel that? Not ignoring it because of this is that person's fault. Not ignoring it is the wrong thing to do. But when we're there, I'm just going to add to it.
Yep.
When we're there, this is what we can do. I don't even have to fight that other stuff because when I fill that person's basket with empowered action, the need for the other temporary relief falls away.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're tired of feeling low on energy and settling for the scraps, it's time for your personal revolution. We are helping people go from the person that they have been to the person they were truly meant to be, and helping people get to the next level in their life, their business, and their relationships. Follow us. And doctors are in a difficult situation because if they don't give the clients what they're asking for, now they're not being true to the 70% of TV marketing that is captured by the pharmaceutical company. They've informed the client takes these half-truths or quarter-truths to their doctor. They demand a certain prescription. They demand a certain remedy for that. If the doctor doesn't do it, they open themselves up to lawsuits a lot more easily.
That's very difficult.
So they do that while they're trying to do the other things that are not only taking care of the short term, but also the long term.
Yes.
And so we just have to know what we're stepping into, exactly as you said, and really work to limit the amount of time that we stay in that setting.
Exactly.
And that's the work of the coach, is to not rail against how bad that is, but just demonstrate through action and results how the beliefs can be different and how those empowering beliefs can put them in a situation where they're not finding that encounter as common.
Exactly.
Right? It goes down from a once every few months to because you have to check up that often, to once a year to just get your annual checkup.
Exactly.
It's the listening to everything that they say and taking it because they're the expert, to listening to everything that they say, taking that and running that through the multiple channels, not just the ones that the doctors are looking at, right? Not just this narrow window that is, again, the doctor's job. If you go to a transmission shop, they're going to look at your transmission.
Yes.
Right? That's how that works. So I think that's incredibly powerful. The other thing is, what we don't realize is that the things that we're taking, it's having the empowering beliefs around coping mechanisms and cures.
Yes.
Right? Coping mechanisms, when we have them, such as pain relievers, right?
Yes.
Pain relievers, pain hiders, so muscle relaxers. Those type of things, what they do is they create a lack of sensitivity. They create a lack of sensitivity, and that sensitivity doesn't stop being drawn down for a period of time. What happens is we create immediate relief when we're using coping mechanisms. We're increasing immediate relief, so that immediate sensation of pain is gone, right? but increasing long-term sensitivity.
Right.
Increasing long-term sensitivity, whereas a cure works the opposite way. It increases short-term pain or sensation, and then it decreases long-term sensitivity.
Exactly.
And so we have to know whether in all of life, whether it's fitness or whether it's just relaxing, is what we're doing a coping mechanism or a cure, and are we signing up for the whole journey?
Yeah. I think a really helpful understanding of this has to do with like cooking over a fire.
Great.
If we reach our hand into the coals and burn ourselves, and then we just get rid of fire and walk off into the darkness, we eventually freeze to death and we starve because we're not able to cook our food. But if we go, ooh, that's too hot, and we back away and we find the edge where it's still a little too hot, we can start to learn how to work with the fire. And so when somebody experiences pain, damage, discomfort, sadness, grief, negativity, difficulty, and we help them ignore it for a period of time, they're just running away from the situation. They're avoiding the situation. But if we stand there beside them and we help them back off of it just a little bit and learn how to find the edge of it, then they get to use that sensation as a tool.
So good, so good. All of a sudden now they go from where it was just before it was a switch, now it's a dial.
Exactly.
And that's a beautiful thing, to be able to give people dials rather than switches in order to mature their mindset and educate their emotions, instruct their intuition, just get this whole thing. Because I was coming to you earlier this week, it's like when I said to you, I have a dial around stamina. When I have a dial around the daily original workout. I have a dial around flexibility. I seem to have a switch when it comes to the strength work. And you were saying, let's work within that. Listen to the signals before they become symptoms, right? Listen to the signals, and what it's signaling for you to do will turn that switch into a dial over time.
Yes.
And that's powerful. And when we understand that, when that becomes one of our empowering beliefs, that we're moving from underdeveloped switches into mature dials.
Yes.
That's where we get to start really dialing up and dialing down the different parts of our life: enjoyment, intimacy, relationship, energy, all that kind of thing.
Yeah, very well put.
Yeah, awesome. So when it comes to what do you find to be the most, some of these disempowering beliefs or stories that people walk in through, and what do you wish that they knew that would really not even solve those stories, but just completely dissolve them?
Yeah, I wish they knew that any discomfort that they feel is an opportunity, not a problem. That any discomfort that they feel is a guide towards the direction they should go and not something to be ignored.
Oh, so good. So good. That takes a lot, because when you've been hanging out with a symptom for long enough, or hanging out with a signal long enough for it to become a symptom, long enough for it to become suffering, right? It's hard not to just say, help me now, just like in the doctor's office.
Yes. Coming
into the gym, I've got this problem right now. This is what the problem is. And I remember, shout out to anti-fragile physical therapy.
Yeah.
Because the guy in there, he said he wouldn't treat me if I had already gotten an x-ray. He wouldn't have treated me if I already got a scan. And I was like, why the hell is that? He's like, because I can't treat someone who is that attached to the diagnosis. I need to treat someone who's more attached to the outcome that they desire.
Yes.
I was like, you got to be freaking crazy. That's standing in direct opposition to most of everything that I've met before. And it leans right into what you're saying, is those symptoms are the signals that point to us. Opportunity. Yeah. What are some of the other ones that you see or hear or watch people even act out that you wish they would know a little bit different, or have a different encounter with those?
Yeah. So I'm feeling this because I'm old. And the shortest press back that I get for them to realize it is I say, did you feel this last week? And when they say no, they realize that they're older now than they were last week. And that automatically starts to loosen the hold of, it's because I'm old. It's not because you're old. You're feeling this now because now is your opportunity. And now is your opportunity. And the more of those lessons they learn, the more wisdom they gain over time.
That's great. That's great. That's great. When it comes to that, because somebody might say, hey, I'm old, or I went to the chiropractor, he told me my one leg was shorter than the other.
That's a tough one.
I've lacked flexibility I've never been flexible. Like, when it comes to retraining our body's innate mobility, I was told when I was doing the research, I was told that every child that's born within a range, some sort of range of ability, can squat and put their butt on the floor at the same time, and that's how they prefer to sit. And that's why the toilets are shaped in certain ways in other countries, because sitting in a chair is not natural.
Right. Squatting
down in order to work close to something is. And you can tell because when you're squatting, you're into work. When you're sitting, you're out of it. When you're squatting, you are committed to the work. When you're sitting, you're a spectator of it.
Ooh,
right?
Wow, that's a really good distinction. Being so involved that you're still present, getting those hips down to it. And being a chiropractor in my first year and a half, the gym and group fitness facility that we were a part of was associated with a gymnastics facility. And so at the time, I always thought how somebody moved made them at a higher or lesser risk of injury. So I got like super keen on watching how everybody moved, how everybody walked, how everybody sat, how everybody squatted. I was super focused on it. And I saw that distinct difference between the 4-year-olds, the 5, 6, and 7-year-olds. When they would squat down, the 4-year-olds would just sink. Just like you see in the third world countries. And the kids who were 5, 6, 7 years old, some of them would squat on their toes. Some of them would kind of like have this uncoordinated movement, like they're doing something a little bit different. Some of them just wouldn't go down as far. And I was like, why that age right there? And I started to realize kindergarten. Kids are taught to sit in chairs. So 4 years old, they're at preschool. They're free to move most of the day. They're at home. They're free to move most of the day. Kindergarten at 5 years old, first grade at 6 years old, second grade at 7 years old, you're taught and held into sitting in a chair for progressively longer periods of time. And that starts to stick their tissues together. So they're coming into gymnastics class after 8 hours of sitting in a chair. They're moving differently than the child who was just playing on the floor before they got to class. And so seeing those little differences made me realize, the less we sit in chairs and the more we get people moving, the freer they're going to move and the more they're going to be able to get back to that original squat form.
And it's just part of Western culture where they have you sit in seats to learn, which is not a good learning posture. They have women lay in beds to give birth, which is a terrible birthing posture. And one of the reasons that we have one of the highest percentages of medical intervention in the whole Western and developed world. We have, as a country, we do, because they're putting them in a position that's not natural. We sit the shit, which is not, like, if you ever see all those squatty potty advertisements, that's one of my goals, is to get an advertisement for us like they had, which was awesome, right?
Are you talking about the unicorn? With
yeah,
the
exactly. But just like this whole idea of, like, we're consistently put in postures to learn from experts, not to work in them in order to develop expertise. Right? Where we instead are a passive spectator rather than the active participant in the work. And so we have to be conscientious that all of society is pushing that way. All we have to do is make a simple choice not to follow that, but to generate a path that's best for us.
Exactly. I started to realize that when I was in chiropractic college, we were to sit there and go through a patient injury and illness history, and it took about an hour. And the two of us were sitting in chairs. And I would leave the clinic and go coach people in CrossFit. And I would have people exercise, and I would do personal training. And I'm sitting there seeing people make progress and reduce symptoms of their injury and illness when they're exercising regularly. And then I'm spending an hour talking to a person about all of the things that they've experienced instead of getting them involved right from the get-go.
Getting them moving. Yep.
And so when people show up here to get started at the gym, we rarely to never sit and talk about their history. We say, hey, what do you need to do to feel ready to get started? Sometimes they have something to share, and we keep it as brief as possible, and then we get them moving. And as they get moving, they start sharing things as they need to, but the focus is moving their body, because any movement that we do that's listening and learning and developing is going to help release all of those old stories of the past.
Some of the most powerful therapy I've ever had, to speak to that point, is I was sitting in this guy's office. He was like, this is not for you. Said, this is not for you. Let's go on a walk.
Ooh.
And every single time after that, we went on a walk. And as I began to talk about hard stuff, all he would have me do is start to cross the planes of my body to get my mind involved while having that active participation in the conversation.
Beautiful.
And it's like, so many of my experiences in therapy, which is really trying to learn how to metabolize the body or metabolize the injury that's happened. But we metabolize that through our bodies, our physiology, not just through our psychology.
Exactly.
Right? And so what this guy knew and what this guy equipped me with were physical movements that could assist in metabolizing the damage that had been done in order to make room for new growth. What a beautiful thing.
Perfect.
Right?
Perfect.
And I think that's where a lot of therapists are struggling. They're trying to find more clients to be able to sit down and talk about things that need to be moved.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Move the emotions through, move the experiences through, recreate new patterns. And quite literally, our brain remembers particular postures when we had negative experiences. And we alter that posture and hide and shift and don't approach that posture again until we're ready. Well, the right exercise program is going to gradually nudge you up against that thing that you're trying to avoid. And as it gradually nudges you up against it and you're hydrating yourself well between each session, you naturally just start to release and reprogram as you move through.
Yeah. It got stuck in your body. You're getting it unstuck.
Exactly.
Right? That's a big deal. So when you do see that, where people do have these attachments to symptoms or diagnosis, such as the hamstrings, such as they really believe that physiologically that they have scoliosis, so that's going to stop them from doing the work. How do you start to reinterpret that story, start to punch some holes in it?
Yeah. So there's two directions when somebody has an issue. One is just get them moving so that their experience is that they felt uncomfortable, they moved with it, around it, and through it, and feel better now. So they have to go through that experience. And when they start being fearful and restricting themselves, then it's expressing how many people went from where they were to the other side of that. Scoliosis specifically. There's a gentleman by the name of Lamar Gant. Go ahead and look him up. His x-rays are still visible. His world record deadlifts are still visible. The man weighed something around 135 pounds, deadlifted 5 times his body weight, 5x, 600 pounds off the ground, weighing like 130. Incredible. That man must have had the perfect posture. He must have had the perfect position of every single one of his bones in order to safely pick that weight up off the ground. Not even close. It's the most crooked spine x-ray you may ever see. It's like a question mark. But he had the ability to develop all of the musculature to support that altered position. And he pushed himself and safely in a healthy way lifted that weight off the ground and set a world record.
It's crazy. It's like that those things, when we understand them as signals, can build a deep resilience. Can build a deep resilience in throughout the whole person.
Exactly.
Right? It's like, because there's a little bit of I'm going to because I can't. I'm going to because they don't believe that I can. F the haters. Like there's a little bit of that. Plus there's a willingness, because things aren't exactly as they see them out there, to be willing to be creative and open to how can I do it, rather than do I have to do it that way, or I have to do it that way.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Check out the official Unlock Potential store, where inspiration meets style. Explore our exclusive collection of gear inspired by the transformational messages straight from our Unlock Potential podcast. From trendy apparel that embraces the power of positivity, to accessories that fuel your motivation. We've got something for every go-getter. Spread the messages of empowerment, energy, and motivation that you get from the Unlock Potential podcast by grabbing your gear today. All right, everybody, we just wanted to take a quick pause here because we realized that Corey was dragging it out. I'm just kidding. Because I realized that we had a ton of content in this episode that was exceptionally valuable. Thank you all for joining us and watching. We're going to release a part 2 of the episode, Strong Enough to Go Deep, Deep Enough to Go Strong, in the very next week. Hopefully by that time you've had some time to process and integrate. Is there anything else that you want to say to make this a 15-minute intro or anything?
No. Let's wrap.
Let's wrap.
Baby.
All right. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you in part 2. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Unlock Potential. For exclusive content, make sure to subscribe to our Patreon. Follow us across all socials at The Brian Delaney, and visit our website at thebriandelaney.com to shop our gear and see what's coming up next.